Please, someone explain how this is supposed to be survivable. All right, so I've seen a fair amount of posts recently criticizing hard stratagems. Not to mention, stratagems in general have been pretty wild when it comes to difficulty. You can find normal stratagems that have a set of conditions that might make it harder than lethal, or maybe even absolute. Probably not, though. But you can also find stratagems that, are hard stratagems with a set of conditions that might not make it harder than absolute. However, most people are struggling with stratagems in general, and when it comes to hard stratagems, a lot of people aren't even bothering, which is unfortunate. I've talked about this before. I've said the devs probably need to understand that there's going to be a lot of returning players, and not to mention there's going to be new players. So not everyone's going to have a year to get good at this game. And, in turn, that means they're missing out on content. That means there's content that they want to play that they can't because it's too difficult. Now, regardless of how you feel about the game, I really think the devs should take another look at difficulty, and I think the way they wanted the game to be punishing was just not at the right time. Like, to be completely honest, if you want the game to be as hard as it is right now, consistently, like, above absolute difficulty, you're going to see a lot of players who just aren't enjoying themselves in the game, unfortunately, because, yeah, when it comes to stratagem difficulty specifically, not a lot of people are enjoying playing around, not able to dodge, or you get your armor, dented. Like, that's kind of insane. So yeah, we're gonna take a look at a clip real quick to set up the rest of the posts that we will be seeing, because yeah, I mean, it's less about people talking about one post, but it's more about the fact that when it comes to difficulty in this game, a lot of people just seem to be fed up. All right, so we have a Vanguard. That's a pretty good start. You have a Vanguard, you have a Tactical who went down, and a Sniper. All right, so let's theorize what team perks they have. There's Chaos Spawn, there's a Hellbrute up there, and a Disc Shaman. So let's say the Vanguard has Unmatched Zeal, the Sniper Squad Renewal, and the Tactical has Secure Stockpile. That's pretty fair. Okay. How is this survivable? Well, I'll tell you what. Oh, he got hit by the Hellbrute right here. Yeah, that's rough. And then the Disc Shamans. Okay, so you're trying to dodge away from the Hellbrute, and then the Disc Shaman roll catches them. This is, yeah, because he's trying to dodge away from the Hellbrute. This is one of those situations where there's not a good dodge to have. I mean, I guess unless you went left or right, but you're still going to get dented by the Hellbrute. Yeah, that's... Oh, gosh. And then they got hit by another Disc Shaman. And... Whoa, were those rockets from a Terminator? Nah, that's rockets from a Terminator. Brother, yeah, I'm not too sure if this is survivable. At first, I wanted to find a window for him, but that's not survivable, bro. That is not survivable. Well, you know what? I will say, he should have played a little bit more aggressive here, just a little bit. Right here is where I would try to drop kick this Disc Shaman to the left here with the grapple. But I didn't notice the Terminator at first, so there's a Terminator hiding around here. And yeah, obviously Chaos Spawn are going to make it really difficult to pick up your teammates. The Sniper should be able to pick up the Tactical. Yeah, you guys are cooked. Yeah, dude. This is Obelisk, by the way. That is a Hellbrute spawn that can happen right at the beginning. And not to mention you can get a Hellbrute right after this as well, which is wild. Yeah, I mean, dude, I have to be honest. Most players aren't playing past that. Like, and then people are in these situations. They are dying and then putting the game down. You know what I mean? They're not even going to go back to normal stratagems because they think they're bad or something. Honestly, don't feel bad if you lose out in situations like this. This is the game blatantly being unfair. And the majority of players are playing fairly. You know what I mean? The majority of players aren't over there spamming Meltas or whatever. And we will talk about Meltas being fair, unfair a little bit later. But right now, when it comes to difficulty in this game, I feel like if you're doing anything like spamming Meltas or, using Invigorating Icon, anything that's meta is very appropriate at the moment because the game just doesn't let up. Like, look at this. The Disc Shaman was the one thing that really messed this up, to be honest. I mean, that Hellbrute shot was pretty bad as well, but him getting roll caught just pretty much spiraled everything out of control. And then the rockets. And then, yeah, I do think he got stunned by a chaos spawn, actually. I just noticed that. Yeah, right. Okay, no, maybe not. I don't know. He was, either way, there's 2 chaos spawn right here. He's cooked. He was cooked. And now you have 1 sniper, which I have to be honest. If I was in this game, I would probably leave. Like, to be completely honest. I know some people don't like that, but brother, like, this is the first encounter in the mission. If the tactical going down is unfortunate, but if we can't, like, stand our ground at all as a team for this fight, it's just not gonna get any easier. You know what I mean? It's not gonna get any easier. And then also we have a lot of mortal wounds. Not to mention they probably died here anyway. Where's the sniper at? Can I see the sniper? Yeah, sniper's right here. Oh, he did end up picking up their teammate, though. I mean, dude, they actually might have been able to push this through if they had Bonds of Brotherhood. If they had a heavy here. If they had Bonds of Brotherhood, they can push this. But since they don't, I mean, they have a Vanguard. They might have Unmatched Zeal, right? Actually, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. Yeah, regardless, though, this situation's obviously not survivable because he's dead. Does anyone else think the hard stratagems are a higher difficulty than absolute? For clarification, hard stratagems are inherently harder than absolute because it's just absolute with additional nerfs. That's not what I'm talking about. Also, I have no problem with hard stratagems being insanely difficult. It's a skill issue on my part, and it's fun to adapt to those changes. I agree. I think for the majority of my experience with hard stratagems, I've felt this specifically, like to see certain conditions and play around it. Yeah, I agree. That is very satisfying. It's just rough outside of the whole, you know, under-leveled, no team perk players joining hard stratagems, which shouldn't even be possible. Outside of that, you still see players who are like level 25, prestige 4, and everything like that struggle with hard stratagems, with certain hard stratagems. I've seen some people mention that they think some of the easier weeklies that we've had are still too difficult. On that end, I'm kind of less convinced. I'm more convinced about the game being too difficult for dailies, because dailies can be super random. Weeklies are, I believe weeklies are picked specifically, but dailies can be way too difficult for the majority of the player base. And I feel like a lot of players are just jumping into them, not knowing how difficult it is, and then in turn complaining about it. But I still think the overall sentiment with hard stratagems is it's just not worth it. And that's unfortunate. Again, the devs really didn't do themselves any favors. There's a lot of returning and new players to this game that they could have captured if they just kind of chilled with the whole punishing game thing. Like, it's honestly to me just very tone deaf, to be honest. However, it feels like I take more damage than usual and deal less damage than usual. I know there's modifiers that reduce health to all specific classes, but I'm not playing those classes. In this weak stratagem, I just get evaporated instantly as soon as I take any damage, and my CHP recovery is non-existent. I'm not playing bulwark or heavy either. I'm playing tactical. All right, so this is a theory. I'm gonna say this is a theory. This is somebody who is suggesting that hard stratagems are like base without any conditions, are just base harder than absolute. I'm not too sure if this is true. However, you can still see the common sentiment that people are just kind of sick of the punishment from hard stratagems. I think even if the devs were to put hard stratagems on lethal difficulty, I still think they would be too difficult for most of the player base, to be completely honest. However, I think that if the devs did that, it would be like a nice meeting in the middle, where it's like, oh, well, we want people to play the game. We don't want players too bored on normal, and we want players to strive for something, not just get immediately destroyed and then put the game down forever because they think they're bad at the game. When the truth is, they're not even bad at the game. It's just the game is blatantly unfair at times. So playing through some of those moments is definitely very satisfying. But to be completely honest, I still think those moments would exist even if hard stratagems were at lethal difficulty. You know what I mean? I think hard stratagems being at absolute is probably a little bit too much for most players. It's just the truth. Outside of the fact that this player genuinely thinks that base hard stratagems are more... Wait, hold on. It's less about hard stratagems being compared to absolute, but how would you compare the health pools and the damage you take from hard siege mode? Compare hard siege mode to absolute, and I think that is the like the key here, because hard stratagems, I bet you their base difficulty is more akin to hard siege mode, which would explain why why enemies would be a little bit tankier. That is very interesting. Holy cow. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any more information on this one, because that is very interesting. I believe on absolute difficulty, the health pools for majors are definitely lower than hard mode siege. And in turn, if hard stratagems took the same scaling from hard mode siege, that would make hard stratagems a little bit more difficult than absolute. Wait, then how did they add the absolute requirements for like terminus, where you get like an extra terminus spawn and everything like that? They do have that in hard stratagems, so I don't know. This is interesting. I don't want this post to get me a little bit too crazy. Like, honestly, I probably should test some of this stuff out. But yeah, in my experience, I can kind of see where they're coming from. But still, I wanted to use this post as a way to point out that perhaps they could tone down the difficulty for hard stratagems just a tad. They literally are. Enemies deal more damage and take less damage on hard stratagem modes compared to absolute. This is evidenced by certain breakpoint builds suddenly failing to hit their breakpoints on stratagem modes. Okay. Well, that means, sheesh, that means the Xenoblade's just a lot better than I thought, I guess. But no, seriously, that's insane. That's insane. The devs seriously dropped the ball on difficulty. I have to be honest. That is just blatantly irresponsible. That is insane, dude. Hey guys, I know the veterans to this game are beating absolute at a I know that 10% of the players who are playing absolute are beating it at 60% of the rate, but let's make that way lower, and let's make sure we frustrate all of the new and returning players to the game, in turn turning them off from committing to stratagems because they think they are bad at the game, when the reality is we're just being blatantly unfair about it. Like, this is, oh gosh, I feel so bad for some of these players, man. They're getting absolutely chewed up, dude. That is insane. This makes so much more sense, to be completely honest. Like, looking back at my experience with hard stratagems, this makes so much more sense. I think I speak for the vast majority that these need to be changed. Great responsibility. Yeah, we've talked about this, by the way, but I just want to reiterate this into the point of potentially hard stratagems being too difficult. But okay, great responsibility. Random chosen player will have 100% more health, but all damage taken by the team redirects to them if they die, the mission fails. Literally no reason to have this stipulation. If they die, the mission fails. Like, what? Why? The reason being is because I guess the devs thought, wow, it would be way too easy if two players on the team were invincible, completely ignoring the fact that one player on their team is going to be indefinitely downed, essentially. This is a bad condition that they need to change. We've talked about it, but yes, just want to reiterate, because essentially hard stratagems already have higher base scaling than absolute. Maybe let me know in the comments if you have any information that, you know, supports or contradicts that. But okay, let's continue. Equipment malfunction. Hope the mission isn't exfiltration. Yes, the exfiltration does get bricked with this condition. Very true. Armor malfunction. Dodge rolls cause you to take a small amount of damage, playable but really unfun. So we have recently seen armor malfunction and great responsibility on the same daily, which is pretty much what made me want to come back to the difficulty conversation here, because who's doing that? Who's genuinely asking, outside of players who are like already, you know, teaming up, specifically going after hard dailies, like no random players queuing into this, man. I saw it and I said, nah, I'm good. I'll play a different hard stratagem. Like, I'm not doing this one. I don't want to, like, first of all, you're going to get players who aren't reading the conditions. You're going to get queues and random teammates who are just throwing. Like that does happen. So and with the loading screens the way they are, matchmaking the way it is, it's just too much of a hassle, man. Suboptimal state, yeah, they already nerfed that. You know what I mean? Like the devs know that they possibly overtuned hard stratagems immensely. Suboptimal state, there's really no reason why this can't be 50%. Absolutely no reason why this can't be 50%. Armor malfunction. Absolutely no reason why this can't just affect armor. There's no reason why armor malfunction should deal health damage. That is insanely irresponsible. Okay, I mean, it's out of touch. It's out of touch at the very least, right? Irresponsible, I mean, I don't know. Regardless, armor malfunction is definitely a not fun condition. Nobody wants to play with this, especially new players. Especially new players who are not very good at the game right now, I guess. Look, here's the thing. We've had veterans of this game have been able to play for an entire year to learn everything about the game and to understand all of the intricacies of dodging and parrying and all of that, all of the move sets. There are plenty of players who are returning or new who see armor malfunction and just don't even bother. Like, here's the thing. I watch other players play this game. Sometimes I watch, YouTubers or whatever play Space Marine 2. I've seen one pretty prominent YouTuber. He always, joins into Space Marine. He'll leave for a bit. He'll come back and stuff. I've seen him play Siege mode. I've seen him play PvP. With the new patch, he didn't even jump into normal stratagems. I think the dude had an idea that these stratagems were way, way difficult. And not to mention, since he wasn't very committed to the game to begin with and doesn't really know as much as, FTG or whatever, I think it definitely dissuaded him to continue playing the game. Because he plays PvP. It's, not that fun. He played Siege mode, which he had a good time with. And in between that, he played Vortex. And I forget what difficulty it was, but it wasn't absolute. And he was already noticing that the game got a lot harder, and it's just Vortex. It's because of Chaos Spawn and the Vortex Beast. So yeah, returning players who played Siege mode even think stratagems are too difficult. Or at the very least, they're too tedious to make a video out of after you play Vortex. I don't know. We will see. I'll keep an eye on that and let you guys know. But I've been noticing a lot of this game's too hard sentiment. There's been a lot of that. We've only read one comment. There's just been post after post after post talking about hard stratagems. And now that we've actually boiled down to what the issues are, I truly think the devs might need to nerf the base difficulty of hard stratagems while also completely reworking some of the worst conditions we've ever seen. To be honest, armor malfunction shouldn't affect your health. Great responsibility shouldn't be an auto fail. And suboptimal state should be 50%. Definitely. I genuinely don't see the point of having daily hard stratagems only appeal to 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% of your player base. I think hard stratagems should be more appealing to players who are kind of, learning the ropes of normal stratagems, but they want to play hard stratagems because it's a new difficulty and something new to experience. But there's too many players being thrown off, being they just aren't motivated to do such a thing because it doesn't seem worth it. Because who would want to play Great Responsibility Armor Malfunction in a random queue, dude? That's insane. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. Do you think hard stratagems need a base difficulty nerf? And not to mention, let me know your experience with hard stratagems recently. I do read a lot of your guys' comments about hard stratagems. A lot of you guys do not play them. So that is why I wanted to reiterate this conversation, because I want players to have fun in the game. There should be a certain, middle ground here where it's only 1% of the players can play this thing, and then 99% of the players are too bored. There has to be a middle ground, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. I will say, though, I'm still having a great time in stratagems, but some of those dailies are just some of those dailies are seriously just not worth it. There are some times where I see dailies like that where I'm like, okay, if I have an hour or two, I'll commit to trying to complete it. And sometimes we'll get to the last boss, and then the next 2 queues are absolutely washed. Like, it just, oh, geez, dude. Yeah, it just takes too long. It genuinely takes too long. Soon though, I will definitely try to do more community-oriented stuff, but even with that, I'm more inclined to do normal mode stuff just so more people are involved, and it's more fun that way, so I don't know. Let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this, but yeah, definitely wanted to revisit this conversation because a lot of people have continued talking about it, and yes, I do think the fact that hard stratagems base difficulty is harder than absolute, that's out of touch. That's crazy. Stratagems should be not only end game content, but also the most fun content in the game, at least in my opinion. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this, and thanks for watching.